There was a family in an old country church, and the preacher had one of those big podiums, the big wooden kind that had the side wings on it, and the light that came above it, and the microphone. And the preacher walked up, and he grabbed that rickety microphone. You could hear it crackle and backfeed through the church, and he leaned it over, and he had a pitcher of water, one of those clear water, and you'd see the water condensation on the side, and he had a glass for the water on the other side, and he walked up, and every Sunday he did the same thing. He would take his watch off, he'd look at it, and he'd set it on the pulpit. And one Sunday, this child looks up at the parent and says, "What does it mean?" And the parent said, "Nothing, absolutely nothing." I say that to warn you, today's sermon might be a little bit longer. Oh, everyone's head drops. Hey, listen, there are a lot of people that don't care about you, okay? They don't really seem to care about you, your sufferings, and sadly, a lot of those people claim to be representing Jesus, which makes it even sadder. When people who claim to love Jesus or follow Jesus don't seem to care, that influences how we view God. And it influences how we believe God thinks about us. Yesterday was the 20th anniversary of what? 9/11. Man, 9/12 was a wonderful day, right? All the flags sold off the shelves, everybody came together, we were united. But just like if you're old enough to remember when C.S. Lewis died, you knew exactly where you were the day he died. I bet you money. I will bet you any amount of money if you're old enough that you knew where you were the exact day he died. How do I know that? Because he died the same day JFK was assassinated. My dad always said, don't bet on another man's trick. But just like if you were there when JFK was assassinated, you know where you were, you remember all that. If you were old enough to remember the moon landing, you know where you were, you watched it on TV, right? You can remember where you were on 9/11. And we could all tell stories how that influenced us and how that impacted us. Painful tragedies, painful experiences, they have a way of changing everything in a heartbeat. Car crash, loved one ill, whatever, it doesn't matter. All of a sudden the page is turned and everything is different. It's difficult. And we go into three phases immediately that come really, really, really easy to us. We get mad, we point fingers, and we blame. That applies to so many scenarios, so many circumstances in life. When we are hurt, when something disappoints us, betrayal, whatever it is, whatever the tragedy is, we get mad, we point fingers, and we blame. And the title of the sermon is Better Than Blaming. You all know who that is in the picture, right? Job. It's an old painting of Job and his four friends who come to comfort him. They sat silent for 7 days. That's the best thing that they did in that whole time, right? Blaming, I will tell you right now, blaming never solves anything. It doesn't undo the wound. It doesn't change the past. And it has no power to bring peace in the present or anything good in the future. Blaming never solves anything. But it's so easy, and I think that's why we do it. It's so easy to blame someone else for the hurt, the pain, the problem. There's a harder, more difficult question that takes a little maturity to ask than who's at fault. And that question is, where is God when I'm suffering? Where is the Almighty when I cry out in anger, in anguish, when I lament, when my heart is broken and I'm a puddle of tears on the floor? Where is God? And does He care? Does God care? I'm not asking the question, why does God allow bad things to happen? Why does God allow pain? Why does God allow suffering? I'm not asking that question. I'm asking, does He care? Does the Creator of heaven and earth care one iota when I am wounded, when I am weak, when I am weeping, when I am devastated? Does God even know when I hurt? I talked with two people this week who at one point in their life were very angry with God. The other person is still angry with God. 9/11, we were marking the anniversary of the Twin Towers. 9/11 also is the anniversary of my mother's death. My mom died 2 years ago yesterday. And so my brother and his family are spreading the ashes yesterday of my mom, having a memorial, and they invited Jacob to come down. So there's a little hotel on Route 66, the old traditional Route 66. You should Google it sometime. It's a neat old hotel. It's got the very, very big neon signs like they had back in the 40s and 50s. It's called the Munger Moss. And if you're ever through central Missouri, you got to just check it out. It's just old and nostalgic, like the tile on the floor, those little square tiles, you know, the pink tiles on the bathroom, you know, the little bitty toilet. You get the picture, right? Very quaint, very nostalgic. So I called the proprietor, who, by the way, they've celebrated their 50th year of owning the Munger Moss. Called her to talk to her to get a good price for Jacob. And she's like, now, which son are you? Because she knows my parents, you know. Now, oh, yeah, you're the preacher. I remember your parents talking about you. Well, I was mad at God when I lost my second son. Now, I didn't ask for more details. I don't know if that she meant her second oldest. I interpreted it as she's lost 2 children. And we talked for quite a bit. I gave her some passages, you know, told her we're sorry for her loss. Mad at God. Don't know if she still is. Another guy this week I talked to is still mad at God. I'm down in Butler. Beautiful. If you ever get down by Lake Watauga, beautiful area. Pumping for these 2 brothers. They're a little bit older than me. And we're just talking. We're waiting for concrete. And I say, you know, I'm also a preacher. The one brother maintains eye contact. The other turns his back and walks away. And then he turns back around and goes, let me tell you something. I'm mad at God. You know people are mad at God, don't you? And I said, yeah. I said, God's got big shoulders. He can handle it. Well, I'm mad at God. You know, why does God allow me to go through all this suffering, you know, and on and on and on. And it was very interesting. But he's mad. He's not just, I don't want to believe in God, or I'm disappointed. I'm mad at God. I'm mad at God. Life is hard. We're struggling. He goes on and on about all these difficulties. Mad at God. The oldest book in the Bible isn't Genesis, it's Job. The book of Job is written, scholars are in agreement, before Genesis. We don't know if Job wrote it or if Moses did. We don't know, but it's older than any book in the Bible. And Job challenges God's sense and God's application of justice. Fairness. God, it's not fair that I should suffer. Why did you do this to me? Of course, if you've read the story, you know God didn't do it. Satan afflicts him, right? God, why have you done this to me? I demand an audience with you. So, 5 minutes ago I said I'm not asking the question why God allows these things. Remember, I'm asking the question, does God hear? The end of the book of Job, you are not given a why. You're not given an answer. You're not told why God allows things to happen. All you're told is, where were you when I created this? Where were you when I created that? Can you control the ocean? Can you control the Leviathan? Right? I am all-powerful and I'm in control. Don't know if that's satisfactory to you or not, but I did a whole master's degree in Christian apologetics, and I've read thousands upon thousands of pages. I've written hundreds, if not thousands, of pages of of papers for school, all that stuff. And at the end, I said, you know what? There's no better answer than what Job, the book of Job, delivers. So there, I just saved you 54 hours in seminary. Read the book of Job. When I'm hurting, when I'm sad, and I know I'm not the only one to have gone through things in life. Nobody likes sour grapes. No one wants to sit around and hear about people's pains and woes. But we all experience it as part of human nature. It's easy to feel insignificant to those around you, to your community, globally, galactically, universally, and in God's eyes. David says, when I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, right? God creates all of the universe. The moon, the stars which you have set in place. What is man that you're mindful of him? Who am I that you would even think about me? I'm telling you what, if you've not seen the videos on YouTube where it's planet Earth and then it backs up and it shows Earth in perspective to the solar system, then the solar system in perspective to our galaxy, and the galaxy, and the size of the planets and the size of the stars, like the Earth is so much smaller than Jupiter, and Jupiter's smaller than the Sun. And it backs up till you see the whole universe. You want to talk about some perspective, you need to watch one of those videos. Who is man that you're mindful of him, and the Son of Man that you care for him? Yet, you have made him a little lower than heavenly beings. We're a little bit lower than the angels, right, in power and ability and knowledge. You've crowned him with glory and honor. You've given him dominion over the work of your hands. You put all things under his feet. Remember Genesis chapter 1, when God makes Adam and Eve, he gives them dominion over the beasts of the field, the fish, everything, right? All sheep and oxen, the beasts of the field, the birds of the heavens, the fish of the sea, whatever passes along the path of the sea. O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. What am I compared to all of the planets, all of the universe? I'm not even a speck of sand. I'm not even the size of a molecule or an atom. When you think about the entirety of the universe, which God simply speaks into existence. So it's easy to feel insignificant. So why would God even care? As small as I am, as temporary as I am, why would God even care? Is God deaf to my lament, my cries, my woes, my problems, my tears, my shame, my discomforts? The psalmist in 55 says, I call to God. I'm asking the question, is he deaf? Does he care of what's going on? I call to God and the Lord will save. Evening and morning at noon I utter my complaint. That's like saying 24, 365, right? I am hurting so bad that the only thing I can do is complain. Evening, morning, noon, I utter my complaint, I moan, and he turns away from me. No, that's not what it says. And he hears my voice. The God who creates everything hears my voice. He redeems my soul in safety from the battle I wage, for many are arrayed against me. God will give humble them, he who is enthroned of old. Selah, that means take a break. It's a term in the poetry. Pause. Why would the psalmist want you to pause there? Because he doesn't want you to keep reading and miss everything you just read. God's going to give ear. He's going to humble them. Pause, reflect on that. Because they do not change and do not fear God. And look at verse 22. Cast your burden. You're asking the question, does God hear? Does God care? Does he know how much pain you're in? Does he know what you're going through? Cast your burden on the Lord. He will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved. Does God care? Does God hear? Morning, noon, night, I complain. What happens to those tears that you've soaked your pillow with? Have you ever been up all night because you've been upset? You're afraid, you're hurting, and you can't fall. Is that not unbelievably weird? No matter, you're so exhausted emotionally, but you can't fall asleep. What does God do with those tears that has soaked your pillow? I could be a cliche guy and say, oh, those tears are watering a rose garden. No, that's not true. You have kept count of my tossings, turning back and forth, your restlessness, your pacing, the fact that you can't get settled. You put my tears in your bottle. A poetic, metaphorically way of saying that God cherishes, right? He's put it in the bottle to preserve it, to cherish it, to hold it, to commemorate it. You've put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book, right? We think of the book of life at the end, that everyone stands before God. You know, will you go into heaven or not? Is your name in the book of the Lamb, right? God apparently has a journal with your name on it. And He keeps track of everything that's important to you. I know it's poetic, I know it's metaphorical, but God is keeping track. My enemies will turn back in the day when I call this. I know that God is for me. In God, whose word I praise, in the Lord, in whose word I praise, in God I trust. I shall not be afraid. What can man do to me? What's God do with those tears that you've cried? He commemorates them. He holds on to them, because when you're hurting, it's touching the very heart of the Creator. There have been a lot of 9/11s through the years, if you think about it. Pearl Harbor. I never pronounce it right, but that volcano about 100 years ago, Krakatoa. How do you, Jim? You know how it's pronounced, right? Krakatoa. Globally, people were affected by that, right? It puts so much soot into the air, right? There are a lot of things globally, nationally, and personally. And the truth of it is, there'll be more in the world around us and in your own world. We will not be free from the 9/11s. Which is why we need to remember that there's something better than blaming. You know? I won't name kids, but there are kids of a younger generation that have tried to convince me George W. Bush bombed the World Trade Towers because there was gold underneath it, right? That he wanted out of there. I'm like, that makes no sense. We could blame terrorists. We could blame America for training the terrorists, right? Where does the blame end? It's not going to fix anything. What's better than blaming? What is better than blaming? I believe pouring your heart and your soul out before the Lord of heaven and earth. Why? Why do I believe that that's true? Why do I believe that's better than blaming? 1 Peter chapter 5 says, humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time He may exalt you, casting your anxieties on Him. Because why? Because He cares for you. Yes, we're lowly. Yes, we're weak. Yes, we're fallible. Yes, we're broken. Yes, we seem insignificant in the big picture. And yet God cares for us. He loves us, and He hears when we cry out to Him. Gardens, they don't produce anything fruitful until the soil is turned up. Jesus talks about a seed, unless it goes in the ground and dies, doesn't produce fruit. Pearl Harbors, school shootings, 9/11s, all of this tragedy, right? Just like on the morning of 9/11, which I can remember, we could all share stories of where we were. My appreciation for my family and those I loved was sharpened into clearer focus. It deepened and it changed. And at least for a little while, our nation seemed pretty united, right? I say all that to say that painful tragedies have a way of shaping our perspective. They change us, and we come through on the other side typically stronger and better off. Did we want to go through it? No. Does something beneficial happen? Yes. Oh, and by the way, one last question before I finish up here. Where is God? Right? I've asked, does He hear? Does He care? Where is God when I'm hurting? When I'm brokenhearted? When I'm crying? According to Psalm 34, the eyes of the Lord are toward the righteous, His ears toward their cry. He watches over us. He's listening. The face of the Lord is against those who do evil, to cut off the memory from the earth. When the righteous cry for help, the Lord hears and delivers them out of all of their troubles. But where is He? Verse 18, the Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit.